You're listening to Speaking Sidemount, the podcast where we talk all things sidemount diving, from equipment, skills, techniques, and sidemount diving expeditions to interviews with some of the world's top sidemount divers. Whether you're new to sidemount, been sidemount diving for years, or just want to know more, this is the place for all things sidemount. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Let's get wet. Hey, welcome back to Speaking Sidemount. I'm Steve Davis. This episode is brought to you by our brilliant sponsor XDeep and by the patrons of Speaking Sidemount. Huge thanks to both for their support that makes all of this possible. Now, speaking of XDeep, I was very pleased to read the recent announcement from the Blackwater Group. You might remember this group now encompasses XDeep, Kiss Rebreathers, and Seal Dry Suits. Now, the news was regarding the moving of manufacturing of Kiss Rebreathers to Poland and the redevelopment of the Kiss Sidewinder to achieve CE certification. The move in production to Poland is touted to drastically decrease delivery times, which is great for those waiting for units. But regarding CE certification, it seems as they move through this process, they've completely reimagined the Sidewinder. The Superwinder, as it's termed, will not only have CE certification, it will come with a number of revolutionized parts while still keeping the unit modular and interchangeable with the current Sidewinder. I think this is huge for all of us who dive or are considering the Sidewinder. First, it gives those of us already on the unit confidence that we can optionally upgrade to the Superwinder, with the same applying to anyone currently awaiting delivery of a unit. Now, it's not news that I'm hanging with Patrick Woodman and the team at ProTech Mexico in November. I'm super excited about the opportunity to train and dive with them, but for sure we'll go over the Superwinder, and I hope to give you all some more insights into what is coming and how the upgrades work. And so on with this episode. Now, Speaking Sidemount has featured many of the top cave diving regions of the world. I'm thinking Mexico, Florida, the UK, the Bahamas, and Sardinia. But it's been awesome to also dig deeper into regions not as well known for caves, places like Sweden, Indonesia, Australia, and Canada. Now, along these lines, I've known for a while that many of the Pacific Islands have cave systems, and also, of course, I get asked a lot about the caves of New Zealand. So when I saw a post from Bruce Clulow, a well-known and very active cave explorer here in New Zealand, talking about his exploration in the Cook Islands, I thought this would be a great opportunity to learn more and share with you all about the caves of what is loosely my backyard. Bruce is a commercial airline pilot flying for my favourite airline in New Zealand. But as you'll learn, this is just a cover for a hugely passionate and capable cave explorer who is part of the group known as the Kaarst Monkeys. Yep, we'll get into that too. Now, in this episode, Bruce talks about how he got into diving and cave exploration. He shares some really valuable insights into human factors for diving, leaning on his experience and application of this discipline from his aviation career. We talk about his cave exploration in the Cooks before he shares a fantastic story of bumping into Robert Thomas, my guest from episode 53, while he was on a tourist excursion to Wookie Hole in the UK. I asked Bruce to share on the caves of New Zealand and what it takes to dive the caves here. We talk about cave rescue and recovery before he shares on his upcoming exploration projects. All this and much, much more in this episode of Speaking Sidemount. And we are recording. Bruce, welcome to Speaking Sidemount.
Thanks, Steve. Good to be here.
Mate, it's awesome to meet you, even if it is virtually. It's crazy that we're both Kiwis and we haven't bumped into each other before. But I think we've got so many mutual friends, it's crazy. We were talking off mic about Grant Pierce in Australia, and of course we both know Tom Crisp pretty well. And I'm sure there's a bunch of others. But to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I mean, what do we want to know? Do we want to know from a diving point or just everything?
Both, everything and anything. Anything you're happy to share with us, we'll take it in.
Okay. Well, I guess my passion's been diving for quite a while now. I learned to dive when I was a kid. My dad dived. He was a Cook Strait diver. And my godfather was also a diver in France. He was quite a well-known diver who was really into wreck diving. Yeah, he's written a couple of books, etc. So he taught me to dive when I was about 12. That was back in 1989, 90, somewhere around there. And I've dived on and off ever since. Probably 10 years where I didn't do too much because I was focused on career and other stuff. But pretty much from early 2000s, I've just been diving continuously. And that's, I guess, taken me eventually to the technical side of diving and cave diving and now exploration diving and caving, etc.
Yeah, and how did you go from that beginnings of recreational diving? Because we all go through that, of course. We learn to dive at open water level and then we kind of progress through that. What drove you to then go and seek technical diving?
I guess when you do lots of diving, as you probably know, eventually you sort of get sick of the sameness of it, I guess, going out, getting a crayfish, cruising around, looking at things. Like, I think for my personality type, I'm sort of driven. I like to accomplish things. I like doing new things. It was just a natural evolution. I got to the point where I was, I guess, not bored with my diving, but just wanting new challenges. And so back in the sort of mid-2000s, I sort of got interested in the technical side of it, just sort of pursued it from there. And then it naturally takes you, I think, to sort of rebreathers and cave diving. Now I combine sort of all of it, Sidemount, rebreathers, cave diving, exploration. I mean, that's probably 90% of all my diving now. Still do a little bit on recs and a little bit of recreational stuff. I still teach the odd course, but pretty much my passion is now just getting out there and exploring new stuff.
Did you do your training here in New Zealand or?
Yeah, I did some of it here. I did most of my technical courses sort of, I guess, half and half with the open circuit stuff. I did some here in New Zealand and then some over in Australia. I did my initial cave training here in New Zealand with Jamie O'Byrne back in, it must be 2010 or 11, somewhere around there. And then did the rest of it in Mexico and then Australia as well.
It's a little challenging learning cave here, isn't it? I mean, I think Jamie was teaching the equivalent of Cave 1 or Intro to Cave with GUE. And then, once you want to find something a little more complex where you can go full cave or Cave 2, it gets a little challenging, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, that's what it takes a lot of people overseas. And then because of the training, really, it was in Australia. I was doing some training on a rebreather over there, and that's where I met Grant Pearce and Ryan Kachkowski, who I think you may have interviewed in the past, but he and I have done quite a bit of diving together in Australia.
The man is crazy.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, every time you talk to him, you find yourself smiling and you get wrapped up in his passion. And
exactly.
It's pretty cool.
And he's just so accomplished and he's so great to dive with. And I mean, we just get on well, and so we went and did a whole lot of stuff out in the Nullarbor together and Cocklebiddy, and then he's come over to New Zealand with me once, and then we've also done some stuff up in the Northern Territory, Queensland sort of area. So Ryan's, part of the Kaarst Monkeys with Grant and Paul Hosey and Rod O'Brien and that, and so we all get on really well and similar sort of attributes and I guess enthusiasm and passion. So
I want to ask about that because I mean the name Kaarst Monkeys, and then you talk about attributes. So where did all that come from?
Well, I think the Kaarst Monkeys name is actually, I think the guys were sitting around the campfire one day out there in the Nullarbor and going, well, we've got the wet mules, with Harry and Craig, who, we're also friends with. But what's our name going to be? And I think sort of like a bit of sort of gazing up at the stars, wondering, and then someone came up with the Kaarst Monkeys. So, it's
stuck.
It's stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Harry's story about the wet mules. It was kind of like we dive, so we're wet, and then we were always carrying gear around, so we're just like mules. So that's it. We're the wet mules, So
exactly. And I think the monkeys for us, we're always just monkeying around, and having a good time, and it summed up the sort of group's enthusiasm, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of time for playing around and so on, and of course, there's times when it gets serious. So tell us a little bit about. Let's start at the beginning. When did you start looking at cave exploration and that sort of thing, and what were you doing and how did that actually come about?
I did my initial cave course with Jamie, and the reality was I'd read a lot of sort of stuff over the years and, looked at what was being accomplished in the States, in Mexico and that, and really interested in it. And also Jamie at the time was, I think, he and his team were sort of looking at Blue Creek, and I was really interested in, getting into that. It just it really sort of, I don't know, piqued my interest, so to speak. And so I went and did the course with him, and then pretty much that was it. I was straight in, starting to have a look at stuff by myself and with other people. And of course, then you need more training. So I got myself over to Mexico in 2012, I think it was. I can't exactly remember, but I did my, full cave course with Lena over there. That was fantastic. She was a great teacher. I'm sorry, her last name slips my mind at the moment, but from there on, it was, some open circuit stuff, which was good, but just limiting. There's only so much you can do, with long caves, deep caves on open circuit. So I got interested in...
Were you sidemount diving already at that point, or...?
No, I had a JJ. I was diving a JJ CCR, and of course, trying to lug that through a cave and small caves, and, it's just not a go. So I naturally then sort of moved towards the Sidemount rebreather, which was at the time really only the sidekick, the Kaarst sidekick. So that's where I met Grant Pearce, and of course Ryan was on the course. We were the first two to have those in in the Southern Hemisphere, I think. So Grant did our initial course in Mount Gambier, and then Ryan and I got on really well, and Ryan said, well, come out to the Nullarbor. So pretty much that year we were out there diving the sidekicks pretty much straight away in some pretty long dives. Yeah, so I would have said for probably the last 7 or 8 years, most of my diving has been on the sidekick with some open circuit stuff here in New Zealand as well.
I know from my own experience, I'm diving the Sidewinder. Ed Sorensen made this comment as kind of one of his catchphrases, which is, this rebreather will reduce your gas stress, your distance stress, and your time stress.
Exactly.
And it's exactly right. It's it'll let you go further. You've still got to do gas planning. You've still got to plan all your bailout and all that sort of thing. But if something does go wrong, you've got a long time to solve the problem, provided your rebreather's not screwed.
Yeah, the human factors with rebreathers, quite interesting. I mean, I find what they give you is, as you just said, is they give you time. They give you time to think. They take away that stress of those 2 needles on your gauges on open circuit going down. And we all know, when you get into a tight space where you get a bit trapped or bad viz, that pressure, of knowing that your cylinders are slowly emptying really starts to affect your sort of ability to stay calm and make good decisions and that. And I think that's the best thing about diving a rebreather in caves or in a overhead environment or deep, is that you're not sitting on a ticking time bomb so much. That's how I feel about them.
You're right. You mentioned human factors, and I was having a chat to Pete Mears the other day about various things, rebreathers, and one of the things he was pointing out to me was the terrible safety record that rebreathers have over the past X years. And I said, yeah, Pete, that's right, but you've got to dig into the data to really understand what the reality is. Yes, you can have big problems with rebreathers, and yes, if you don't pay attention to what's going on, particularly if you're not doing checklists or you become complacent, then they can cause you big problems. But at the same time, they bring an element of safety to your diving, in my opinion, which is what we're just talking about, which is giving you this greater time to solve problems and less stress when you're in a problematic situation.
Yeah, I think once you're experienced on them and you know the downsides of them, they significantly increase your safety. I think probably there's a bit of a learning curve, obviously, with them where you don't want to be doing any exploration or pushing stuff. And then they're also not for people, I think, who can't be procedural and use checklists or understand, the physics, physiology with them. Yeah, I think once you've got some experience on them and you respect them and you know the issues with them, well, then they're a fantastic tool. I liken them a little bit to sort of what's happening in aviation. Rebreather, the technology and the procedures and the human factors are sort of about 20 or 30 years behind where aviation is. I mean, I fly for work for New Zealand and fly an Airbus aircraft, and very much, it's a highly technical aircraft. We've got a lot of training in human factors, a lot of stuff on decision making going on, all that sort of stuff now. And I see sort of rebreathers and the technology and the human factors with them sort of like what aviation was 30 years ago. The new technology coming in, some accidents occurring because of that, the wrong sort of decision making, the wrong sort of human factors, the wrong crew resource management going on. And I think it's quite a similar pathway to, what rebreathers are taking now. They're getting better with the technology. People are becoming more aware of the problems and the human factors behind them. And slowly the safety record's getting better and better.
Yeah, agreed. And I did an interview with Gareth Locke as well, who I'm sure you're aware of. And that was brilliant. Him bringing some of the aviation theory and practice around human factors to diving, not just rebreather diving, but all diving. But of course, it points straight into some of the things that we're doing. So how do you find it as a pilot? I know you do checklists on the aircraft. How do you see the relationship between the two, and what should we be doing or what should we be learning from aviation?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think if we put aside sort of the team sort of dynamics, associated with diving with different people and put that aside, I think from a technical point of view, I see rebreather manufacturers are being quite a way behind with checklist design and procedural design. When the first rebreathers came out, and even some of them now, very extensive checklists, which are essentially what we call procedures that you should just learn by repetition in aviation, whereas a checklist is designed as an audit of your procedures. So when you build a rebreather, you put it together, you shouldn't really need to use a checklist. But what you use the checklist for is critical killer items that will kill you, like the oxygen not being turned on, etc. Something, your dill not being plugged in, etc., and tested. So things like that. Yeah. So I think they could probably do with some more training and how checklists should be designed and utilized. But I think they're getting there slowly, and technology that's being built into, the newest rebreathers are sorting out some of those problems. And that's where they'll continue to go, I think, with the development or the evolution of them. They'll rely less on the person who's building them or diving them, and they'll rely more on technology and, say, the handsets to, pick up issues.
And here we are diving a sidekick and a sidewinder where
yeah, well,
there is no computer.
Unfortunately, with Sidemount rebreathers, there's no perfect solution. Yeah. And for me, with my diving, I'm normally caving. I'm dragging cave bags through quite tight spaces through dry caves. And the sidekick for me is robust, simple, and fixable. It can take a bit of a beating. So unfortunately, when you combine electronics and other stuff, they probably tend to make things safer in terms of the diving, but maybe not quite as robust in terms of being dragged through a cave.
I love my Sidewinder for that reason. I dive a lot with guys on APs and JJs in particular. And in the future, I know I'm going to bump into a lot of people on Dive Soft Liberties and T-Rebs and so on, which have fantastic computer software that goes with the hardware that goes with the rebreather. But gee, I just love the simplicity of it. I know I'm in control. The leaky valve helps me out a lot, but it's me, and all I have to do is keep an eye on my 3 cells and follow the rules, and I'm all good. Yeah, good to hear your perspective. I also spoke to Simon Mitchell a little bit about checklists in the interview I did with him, and that's a point that he made about the 5 critical items. And I changed my checklist after that. I reduced my checklist to it is 5 or 6 items now, literally.
Yeah.
And I do have a build procedure that I religiously look at and follow, even though I know it off by heart. And Ed did warn me. He said, make sure you check this off every time you do it. But it's about 25 items in the build checklist. But that's to make sure it's built properly. And then the other checklist is the before I get in the water type checklist to make sure that the rebreather is functional and that everything's as it should be.
Yeah, and it's just like flying. I mean, we have a setup procedure before we go flying in the aircraft, and it's all laid down in writing as well. But over time, you've become so familiar with it that you don't refer to it once you've experienced. But the checklist is used every time religiously. There's no ifs or buts with that. It is it's designed to catch you if you've made a mistake during that build process or setup process, etc. And as I said, it's to catch killer items.
Awesome. Well, we've done a Billy Connolly and gone way off topic, and I'm going to bring us back onto the exploration now. So we'll circle back. So you did your full cave training in Mexico. Incidentally, just 1 year before I was there. I was here in 2013, so just missed you. Where did that then take you from full cave Mexico? What was next?
Oh, there was a bit of stuff here. I did some Blue Creek expeditions. And then pretty much was over in Aussie because I was realizing that a JJ, rebreather and back-mounted doubles, etc., aren't that great for going through small caves. So I was over to Aussie to, do the training on the sidekick with Grant Pearce, and then obviously met Ryan. And then pretty much for about 3 or 4 years, I was out there diving in Aussie, doing a lot of diving with Ryan over in the Nullarbor. And then in about 2015, 14, I think I read an article in one of the old Dive Pacific magazines about the Cook Islands, and Paul Tobin and David DeGoldie had done some diving up there in the 90s. And it really got me interested because I used to live in the Cook Islands back in the 90s, and I'd been out to these islands, but I wasn't really diving so much at the time. And now that I was cave diving, I thought, well, maybe I should go back and revisit where they'd been and see how extensive or whether I could find some more stuff. So in 2016, I went up to the Cooks and went out to a couple of islands and just basically dived solo by myself with some gear. I got some gear shipped out there and And what I found was it was just incredible. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And I thought, oh, man, I've got to get back here, with the rebreather. And because some of the stuff I got into was, deep, I got down to 45, 50 meters and on air in one cave. I thought, nah, this isn't good. So,
a bit gnarly.
Yeah, time to, plan a trip. And so 2017, Paul Hosey and myself and Grant Pearce and Rod O'Brien went up for 3 weeks. And we went out to the 3 islands in the Cooks, out to the northeast of Rarotonga. And we dived those for a week on each island, and we put about 3.5 kilometres of line in. We got down to 84 metres in one huge cave, which was just spectacular, and just had a fantastic time. And we thought, wow, man, this is pretty good. And at the time, I was thinking, well, maybe we could actually develop this into some tourism for the Cooks, some niche tourism. And so the tourism board up there was quite interested in that, and so they helped fund the trips. And we went back again in 2017 in September. Paul Hosey, myself, and Richard Harris and Craig Challen and Ken Smith came along as well, and we did some more exploration. And we're pretty much trying to find enough caves and enough passages to be able to sort of support some, niche cave diving tourism. There is probably a limited market there, and especially with sort of COVID reducing travel, I think there's a possibility to be able to do something there, but for me, I'd probably have to be living up there to be able to support that. It's something that I'd still like to sort of maybe think about in the future, because I think there's some opportunities for some cave diving and also technical diving training up there in the Cooks.
Ever since I saw that you'd done this, I was super interested because of its location relative to us. I think the Cooks is a 4-hour flight from Auckland to Raro.
Yeah, about 3.5, 4 hours, yeah.
Where do you go from Raro? How do you get to the islands from there?
Well, we flew out. So Air Rarotonga helped us significantly. I mean, they flew out all our gear on a freight flights, and we arrived out there. And so we had all our dive compressors and cylinders and sorb and rebreathers there. And we just stayed with some local, accommodation providers. So really neat people as well. And they sorted out trucks for us to carry our gear around. Basically, we went around and we just dived everything that we could. We logged it, we mapped it, and then we gave it sort of a rating on whether that would be appropriate, to bring cave divers there or whether they'd be interested. And then we'd just transfer with Air Rarotonga to the next island after a week and do the same again. They were really supportive, really great airline, very flexible. I think we ran out of wine on one island, and they the next day they sent out a couple of boxes with their regular flight. So
that's brilliant.
That's airline service at its best.
I've had a bit of experience with the locals on some of the outer islands too. When I was in the Navy, I was the chief engineer of the frigate Canterbury, which I've mentioned many times, and we did an islands tour that year, and there'd been a cyclone. I can't remember whether it was 91 or 92 the cyclone came through, but anyhow, there was a fair bit of damage, so we did a lot of work to sort of help them out and so on, and they reciprocated. It was just we had an amazing time on each of the islands. And
I think, for us, we were there trying to develop, something for them and also for them just to see the videos and the photos of what we were doing down there. I mean, they just absolutely loved it, and they were very supportive of the island communities of us, and we made some, really wonderful friends that we still keep in contact there, and just a really, really lovely atmosphere on every island and very supportive, really enjoyable time.
Amazing. And I guess in order to set something up there, it's really infrastructure, isn't it? It's having compressors and gases.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard. I mean, you'd only need a small, say a container of equipment on each island and, a dive compressor on each and just some, sets of gear. It's more just whether it can be cost effective. I mean, people have to have the money to be able to fly to Rarotonga and then out to the islands and then really, you need someone with the right skills who can, obviously teach or guide, can fix stuff, can, provide all the support. I think that's one of the limitations with actually being able to do something commercially there. You'd really have to live on the island and have someone with a lot of different skills to be able to do that sort of tourism.
I'm thinking Brian K. Cook, exactly. And Abaco and someone,
Well, he's probably the, pretty good example of, the person with a lot of skills doing something similar, although I think the cave systems that he's got are a lot bigger than what are in the Cooks.
Sure, But again, for this part of the world, I mean, I know a fair number of Australian cave divers, and quite often they're diving Mount Gambier and the Nullarbor and so on, but the opportunities in this part of the world, there's a little bit coming to New Zealand, but really, unless you're prepared to travel up to Asia, to the States, Mexico, Europe, you're always traveling if you want to go beyond your backyard.
Yeah, I think, maybe in the future when I'm old and retired, I could, sort of do that part-time, I think.
That's right. That's right.
Or if someone was really interested. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, mate, I tell you what, I'd be very keen to go at some stage. So, I mean, if that opportunity ever comes up, we'll stay in touch. I'd be keen to go and have a look. It'd be amazing. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I've got quite a few people have said, they'd be interested. So I think, once all this COVID stuff settles down, airline travel's a bit easier. And I think, definitely try and arrange a trip back up there because, a lot of people have said to me they'd love to come and have a look. I'd love to go back too and just do a bit more poking around.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, no, look, we're almost there. I'm flying to Australia in just a few weeks to go to Mount Gambier again and do some diving. And then I'm in Mexico for the month of November and then into early December. And again, my objective there is to do some more training on the Sidewinder. I'm training with Patrick, doing the coveted CCR cave, which is required for most parts of the world, not so much Australia, and doing some deeper training with him too. So I do the Mod 2 normoxic dry mix and start progressing into some deeper stuff. So I'm super excited about that.
Mexico is just so easy and so awesome, the diving. Every dive you do is just like, wow.
And I love the platform. Yeah, you turn up, drive up to a car park, jump out, jump on a platform, go for an amazing dive. Cave systems that interconnect, and just the sheer complexity is stunning, and the beauty of them as well.
I'd love to get back there with a sidekick and a scooter, a couple of scooters. I think, I could have a lot of fun.
Definitely. I saw recently you travelled to the UK and bumped into some more of my former guests on the show with Robert Thomas. Tell us about what happened there.
That was really funny because I went over actually for quite a sad reason. My partner's mum passed away and we went over for her funeral and to close up her estate, etc. But after we'd done all that, we went for a bit of a road trip through England and we went to Wales and spent some time there. And actually at Rob and Michelle, they've got a Rob and Michelle own Spittal Springs, which is a cave system in Tākeka that I've been exploring. Right. They're great people. And so they offered to let me stay at their batch in Wales. So we stayed there. That was great. We were driving past, can't remember which city it was, but anyway, there was a sign off saying to Wookie Hole Cave. And I went, should we go and do the Wookie Hole tourist experience?
Right.
Partner Jojo said, yeah, that'd be great. So we rocked up there. We went and paid, I don't know, $15 or $20 to do the tourist, walk through the cave, etc. And it was actually really fun. I really enjoyed it. Sometimes they can be a little bit naff, but I had a, really good time. And the guide was a really lovely guy, and he got talking, and, he said, there's a couple of cave divers in at the moment, you might see them. And anyway, we finished the tour, I came out, and there's the two cave divers getting out of the water. So I wandered up and said g'day, and there was Rob Thomas and Lewis Phelps, I think his name was, the other guy, and we got chatting, and they said, should we go down to the pub and have a beer? So went down and had a beer, and then they said, do you want to have a dive? I went, hell yeah. So yeah, Rob jacked up some gear, and about, 4 or 5 days later, I met him, and we went and dived up to the, I can't remember, 23rd or 24th sump or something, or the chamber. I can't remember exactly where it was. Yeah. And it was all in borrowed gear, borrowed dry suit and everything.
Oh, you're in a dry suit at least. At least they didn't make you wear a wetsuit.
Yeah, I was in a dry suit, which, just had a wonderful dive. It was really good viz. Fantastic. So, came out of the dive absolutely buzzing because, Wookie Hole, all the history, of cave diving in the UK sort of starts there, doesn't it?
It does.
And went to the pub afterwards, had a few beers, and then the next day we drove up and I stopped in a little place north of sort of the Kirkby Lonsdale, and met Jeff Crossley. And it was really interesting because Jeff Crossley, obviously you know that name from diving in the 90s. Set a world record with Jeff Yeadon back in the 90s, I think, connecting King's Spot to Cowed Head. And I'd come across some of his cave line in one of the islands in the Cook Islands during my exploration there.
Wow.
And did some research and got in touch with Jeff. And he said, he was there in the 90s on a scientific expedition and did some, cave diving there. So sort of became friends with Facebook with him and dropped in to see him on our way through England. And we had a night out with him. And Jeff's just wonderful to talk to. He's so enthusiastic. He's got so many stories, and really enjoyed meeting him too.
It circles us a little onto the New Zealand cave diving you're doing, because I know a lot of that involves a little bit of dry caving at times, as well as diving in flooded cave, which is very much the UK scenario. So tell us a bit about how you got into cave diving further in New Zealand, and then we can lead into where you are now and what you're doing now.
Yeah, I think Blue Creek was sort of, as I said, I got interested and I did some diving in there, and both on open circuit and rebreathers. And then I sort of did a lot of stuff over in Aussie. And once I got back from the Cooks, I sort of got more interested in, pushing what was around here. And so it naturally led me to get in touch with Kieran Mackay. And Kieran, I don't know if you know him, but he's probably the most accomplished caver or person who's probably discovered the most drive cave and underwater cave in New Zealand. So sort of started doing a bit more with him. And that's just led to, a lot of opportunities to push, more stuff. Because Kieran comes from a caving background and, the diving is really a tool for him to find more dry cave, whereas I've come from the cave diving background and the caving is really just a, something that needs to be,
to get to some more water,
get to some more cave diving. So the two of us sort of, I think, work quite well together because he's got a lot more caving skills and experience, obviously, than me. And I probably bring some different experience, obviously, with the rebreathers and deep stuff and maybe some different experiences to the table, with him. So, yeah, we get on quite well. And, I mean, I'm really lucky to know him because he's out there all the time finding new stuff. And, that's his passion. So I get to tag along on a few and, and push the odd system myself. And then there's a few there that I've done with the rebreather as well, the sidekick, just because they're too long or deeper than can do an open circuit. Yeah, and then along the way, obviously met Tom, Chris. We connected Totra system to the cottage system back in 2019. And then I've been exploring the Totra system a bit more. This summer, that's really going to be one of my big projects. Is I want to push that as far as possible because it's got the potential to be a really, really big system. And it's also got the potential to have a really long passage running from north to south that could be in excess of 6 or 7 kilometres of both dry and underwater caves. So that's one of my big projects for this summer.
And let's paint a picture for a moment, because a lot of people ask me why I don't dive New Zealand caves. And I think you have to paint a picture of what cave diving is in New Zealand versus Mexico, Florida, and so on. So paint a picture for everyone about what they're like.
Well, there's one word really, and it's brutal. Look, I think some of it is reasonable. You've got some easier stuff that is, beautiful underwater passage, not much current, great visibility. Totra system and Spittle Springs is incredibly, it's beautiful, easy diving, but it's just the dry caving to get to it. There's multiple squeezes, it's some mud. If it's flooded a couple of the sumps, then you can't really get through to where the good diving is. A lot of New Zealand cave involves vertical pitches, so we're dragging scuba or rebreather gear up and down pitches, and the rewalker that Kieran and I have pushed a couple of times in the last 2 years, it's probably the most brutal thing I've ever done in my life, just because it's just multiple 60 metre plus pitches dragging packs and dive gear up and down and through squeezes, and you're just so isolated in there that the mental side of it is really, really tiring.
Yeah, consequences of an accident are not great, are they?
Exactly, and yet there's no one really in New Zealand, very few people that would be capable of coming and getting us. So if something did happen, we'd be in there for quite a long time waiting for someone to come and get us. The other problem with New Zealand caves is obviously the weather. I mean, they're just so prone to rainfall events. I mean, they go up and down, and I mean, some of them just aren't diveable except for 2 or 3 months of the year in summer, really. So that's the other issue.
And you haven't even mentioned water temperature.
Well, it's reasonably warm. It's sort of, anywhere between 6 degrees and 12. It's definitely, cooler. I think that becomes one of the things that you do acclimatise to over time. I mean, I'm pretty tall and skinny, so I feel the cold, but I must admit over the last 4 or 5 years, I have adapted to the cold better than I thought I would. Part of it is you just have to make sure that you keep moving and you stay warm. Once you get cold, I find it's hard to warm up if you're not wearing a dry suit, obviously. But I think that's one of the things that you just get used to. It's like you get used to diving in warm water, you get used to diving in colder water, etc.
Yeah, and I guess wearing a dry suit can be problematic itself if you've got dry caving to do as well, right?
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's, you have to sort of go, well, okay, do I have the risk of damaging my dry suit while I try and get through a dry cave? And the other problem, of course, is dry caving in a dry suit is extremely hot. So you wear yourself out just with too much heat before you even get in the water, and then you're overheated or you're tired before you get in the water from the dry caving. So it's one of those balancing acts. I think you have to sort of look at the water temperature and the amount of dry caving and how much physical exercise you're going to be doing the exploration. If you've got a long cave dives in cold water where you're not doing much exercise, well, then you're going to need a dry suit in New Zealand. You have to stay warm. So sometimes we're forced to, dry cave in our normal caving gear or in wetsuits even, and then change into dry suits for the actual diving. But we try to avoid that if we can because, carting more gear through caves is hard work.
And let's paint a geographical picture now. So whereabouts in the country are these caves?
So Takaka, which is in the northwest corner of the South Island, that's full of limestone, that area, a lot of caves, and it's got a lot of potential for some very big caves. Takaka Valley, the aquifer there feeds the Pupu Springs, which are some of the clearest water in the world. And we know that the cave systems that sit on top of Takaka Valley and the limestone are fed at times through the aquifer coming up and down, from deep. And one of the projects at the moment is that we want to try and find our way down into the deep aquifer that we know lies under the Takaka Valley. And it's anywhere probably between, could be 20, 30 metres down to sort of 100 metres plus. But if we can get into that, well, then we're into potentially some huge systems. But that's a bit of a dream at the moment. It may happen, but if it does, it's going to take a lot of effort to get down into. So, Takaka and Motueka and Nelson, they're all in the northwest of the South Island. And then we also have some cave systems over on the west coast of the South Island, near Westport, Charleston area. And myself, Mike Beatty and Matt Coots, along with Tom Crisp, have explored, a number of systems there. Kieran Mackay's there all the time exploring stuff on open circuit, but once it sort of gets down below sort of 25, 30 metres, then he's limited because he's not using a rebreather. So we've done some, really great exploration over there that's led to some really exciting diving. High flow, not really deep, but some deeper systems. And then a lot of just shallow cave systems that we're exploring on open circuit, side mount, using 5-7 litre cylinders. A lot of those, we push them, see how far they're going, and then if necessary, we switch to like the side mount rebreathers, or if they're big enough, back mount rebreathers, etc.
And what about the North Island? Obviously, we've got a massive cave system in Waitomo Caves and others, but you don't hear about a lot of flooded cave exploration in the North Island.
Yeah, look, I think that it's there, definitely in Waitomo. There's stuff. I haven't done any. Kieran Mackay's done a lot there, and there's a lot of systems that have got cave diving available. But the trouble is with the Waikato, of course, is that, the runoff and the daring and all that means the water quality tends to be pretty bad. So, the visibility is not that great. And, it's not your ideal sort of pristine cave diving systems that you sort of, you think of when we talk about the Waikato area. But I haven't personally done any there. I'd like to in the future, but I think there's potential for some more stuff there. But Kieran Mackay is definitely the person to talk to if you're interested in that sort of stuff, because he's done a lot over the last 30 years there.
Yeah, to be brutally honest, and I've confessed to this many, many times, my cave diving doesn't involve very much dry caving or rope work or any of that sort of thing. Some of it's age-driven, I guess I'm going to say now, and some of it's just the sort of diving I like to do. So there are cave divers in New Zealand, and we wanted to explore, and when I say explore, it's basically find caves that are suitable for full cave level, who've dived Mexico, Florida, Australia, etc., etc. What would you recommend?
I would recommend coming down here to Takaka and the West Coast over summer, because you're going to have to do some dry caving with some of them. But on the West Coast, we've got systems that you can just maybe not walk up to, but you can drive your vehicle to within, a few hundred metres of them. And there's a couple of systems where we helicopter in, but pretty much I think if you're interested in doing stuff, you have to sort of put aside a couple of weeks in summer. We say, all right, we're going to do this area, make it an expedition, get some people together, get some equipment. 2 weeks gives you a good weather opportunity. And it also gives you time to, to go back and forth between some different systems. I think that's probably the reality for people wanting to do some, more advanced level stuff, is that you need to put aside a couple of weeks, anywhere from December through to March, April, and just get down to the South Island.
All right, done.
Yeah. If you want to come down, I'm more than happy to accommodate you.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Cooks is something that you'd want to do. What's your next plan in terms of diving? You mentioned Galapagos, which, we can talk about as well. So what are you going to do there?
Oh, really, that's just one of those bucket list items. Some of the best open water diving that you can get with fish, sharks, pelagics, etc., etc. So was planning to go there 2 or 3 years ago, but then COVID obviously hit, so we're finally getting to go. So, that's just open water diving, just enjoying being in the water. Get back in about 3 weeks, and then really it's just turning my attention to all the caving projects again. There's the Rewalker this year, Takaka system. The wet mules are over in February again, I think. I'm doing some diving, so catch up with them maybe. I think so, yeah. I'm doing a bit of stuff there. Yeah, and then over in Aussie next year, we're catching up with the guys, and hopefully we'll be back in the Northern Territory, Queensland, and out to the Nullarbor again. We've got a number of projects there that are quite exciting.
Yeah, stunning. And look, I can't wait to get back to Oz myself, so I'm heading over at the end of the month and then going on to OzTech, which will be my first time there, actually, so I'm pretty excited about going there. And a bunch of the people that I'll meet there that a little bit like you and I now I've met either through interviewing them or we know each other on Facebook. Because, of course, being a diver, you're the Facebook friend of just about every other diver on the planet.
Yeah.
So,
exactly, yeah.
So it's going to be really cool. You're not going this year?
I was meant to be presenting, but unfortunately the Galapagos trip clashes with it, and unfortunately I can't get the time off. So yeah, it was either go diving in the Galapagos or listen to diving in Australia. And so
yeah, I'm doing my best. I'm going diving first and then going to the conference. So it's actually my decompressing after a week in Mount Gambier.
I'm really disappointed not to be there. I was so looking forward to it too, just catching up with all these people I haven't seen for a couple of years, obviously because of COVID. But it's you can't do everything in life sometimes. But yeah, I'll definitely be at OzTech next edition.
And what we're doing, I've mentioned it on the podcast before with Global Dive in Auckland, we're starting to try and arrange, cave training for Kiwis who want to do it. So the people who run on from my Sidemount training are then going over and we're doing training with the CDAA. So they go through basic cave and then come back on the next trip and build some experience and then do the cave level. Same again, another trip with experience and then they could get into advanced cave. And we're making sure that they do the TDI equivalencies at the same time. So it's going to be really cool, because as I've mentioned, we don't have a lot of opportunity for training. There's just nothing that's really very suitable for it. So I'm really excited about it. Got a good group of people building for that, and we'll see what comes.
Yeah, well, as I said, if you do want to have a look at some stuff down here, there's some incredible diving here. It just takes a bit of effort to get to, but it's not as bad as everyone thinks. I guess it's just getting the right weather opportunities in summer to do it and knowing the right people and knowing where to go. But yeah, if you do have people who want to do a trip down this way, I'm quite happy to come and meet you guys and do some diving because we're always trying to get more people interested in the exploration side of things. And the only way we can do that is if they actually get out there and do it with them, and that'd be great.
You always need someone to carry cylinders and stuff anyhow, don't you?
Oh, well, I wasn't going to say that. That's my ulterior motive.
You got to do your apprenticeship before you get in the water. But no, it's all part of the deal, isn't it? When you come along and I guess you're plugging into other people's experience and contacts and so on, I think it's only fair that you carry at least a couple of cylinders and at least contribute to the wine cabinet or whatever.
Look, if you come do any diving this way, you'll definitely be carrying some cylinders. But the wine side of things is always a given.
I haven't dived with Ryan yet. The guy scares me a little bit, so I've got to kind of tame his expectations of what we're going to do, but I might see if I can get a dive in tank with him. We dived with Grant last time and we went out to the elephant room, which was amazing. I absolutely loved that. I'm going to do some more of that this time and do as much in tank as I can.
Ryan's great. He will temper his diving to suit whoever he dives with. I've done some amazing diving with him. I think we did Cocklebiddy, the whole 3 sumps in a day about 4 or 5 years ago, and that was one of the biggest days out. Yeah, he's just so good in the water. He's so keen, so passionate, and he's just very, very driven. Mm-hmm. And I really love spending time with him. He's a great guy. And also his wife, Victoria, she's neat too.
Yes, I've met them both.
Great couple together.
They are, aren't they? So what else can we talk about? What else is happening?
Well, really, yeah. For me, it's the projects here in New Zealand are the next go over the summer. We're really keen that. Next year's Australia, whole lot of stuff there we've had to put off for 3 years. Paul Hosey, myself, Grant Pearce and Ryan, among others, heading back up to the Northern Territory, Queensland area to do a whole lot of stuff there. We've got big potential for some big systems there that we're just sort of breaking into.
Tough to get to a little bit like here, or are these relatively...
They're not as hard as New Zealand, I would say now, but there's still a lot of vertical stuff involved. The water level is sort of 60, 70 metres below the surface, so you have to get down, and then there's, it's hot. Biggest issue in the Aussie caves up there is just the heat. It's 30 degrees underground. You need so much liquid. It's grovelly. When we were there last, the visibility was terrible. They'd had no rainfall for about 6 years, and so all the bacteria in the water had exploded and the viz was, really bad. But I think since then they've had a good couple of rainfalls, and so when they get fresh water washes into their systems, the catchment area is so big it just wipes out all the bacteria, washes it away. So, that's probably the next thing I've got. In January, we've got the Sump Search and Rescue exercise in Tākeka that we're running with the police, and Harry's coming over to present at that. I was going to
ask that, yeah, good.
Yep, he makes sure that we're doing everything the right way and provides feedback, etc. and also just provide some credibility, I think, too, for us with the police and the authorities. So the last one of that was 3 years ago. It was really good. It was really enjoyable. I think it was successful overall, and we've got a good team of people that in the last 2 or 3 years we've done some more training, we've developed some procedures and equipment, and if anything happens now, I think we're reasonably well equipped to actually handle any rescue or recovery.
But on international friends, right?
Oh, look, I think it really would depend on what had happened,
Mm-hmm.
where it happened. And part of it's a selfish thing on my behalf and also Kieran, because we, in the Rewaka, we're in pretty remote places, and we really want to know that we've got some people who've got the right training and skills and equipment to come and get us as well, if we do crash and burn, so to speak.
The cave diving group in the UK, I mean, that was very much their thing, wasn't it? I mean, they were basically doing exploration projects, and the cave rescue side went right alongside it. And I'm sure it's the same in the States with Lamar Hires and the group they have there. It's very much about, there are people doing this, these are our friends and our colleagues, and we need to be able to take care of that.
And that's part of it, is that you build a sort of level of trust when you dive with people, and you get to know people's strengths and weaknesses, skills, etc. And so it's about getting a team together that you can go, right, if something does happen, these people will do this, these people do this, and we've also got a plan, a procedure, and the equipment, and also the standing with the police and the police dive squad for them to say, yeah, we're happy for you guys to be involved in this and to potentially help out. It's a work in progress. I mean, I don't think you'll ever get anything perfect with it, but I think we've got a pretty good team of people now. Yeah. I'm pretty confident that if something did happen, we'd be able to conduct a reasonable response to it.
Because again, beyond the capabilities of the police dive squad, I would assume as well, it's well outside their norm, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they were at our last SAREX and our training in 2019, and they said, look, we can't do this. We can't, support underground operations, obviously, because they obviously all surface supplied stuff, and the cave environment is outside their level of training. They're completely capable of going and probably doing it, with some more training, but the reality is it's one of those things that might never happen. If it did, they're probably better to call on people who are doing it all the time, which pretty much is like what happened in Thailand, isn't it? It got proved that there are people that have special skills, and sometimes you have to use them.
Yeah, harping back to Thailand, one of the things that was important was cave maps. Vern was able to bring those maps to the party, which really helped the initial search, especially at the T-junction where they had a choice of 2 directions, saved a lot of time and effort. I'm assuming that you're mapping and that these maps are available should they be needed. Is that actually the case?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, any cave we explore, it's mapped, something's stored away in databases, etc. But I think that's critical with any rescuers, having people who've been in the system and, know it and know the sort of risks or know the ins and outs of the cave itself and how to go about maybe getting people out or rescuing someone, recovering someone, definitely.
Well, mate, we've gone really well, I think, and it's been excellent to meet you, albeit virtually. It looks like you're sitting on your bed there, is that?
Yeah, I am. I'm just enjoying the afternoon. It's quite warm down here.
I should have done the same thing. Would have been a bit creepy, though. So great to meet you, and I hope we can catch up in person. Obviously, Oztech would have been an opportunity, and now that we have virtually met, we can stay in touch, and certainly I'll reach out if I can find some time to come down and have a peek at the
Well, over summer, definitely I'm going to be busy.
Sure.
And all of Takaka, West Coast, and various other bits and pieces. So, make some time, make a week or a few days, and we'll go diving.
Brilliant, mate. Well, thank you, and we'll catch you again soon.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. See you, bye.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you got as much out of it as I did. It was phenomenal to catch up with Bruce, to meet him virtually, and I'm sure very soon we'll meet in person. It was great to hear about the caves of the Cook Islands and learn more about what might be possible in that region, and also to give you all an insight into the caves of New Zealand and what it takes to dive them and why they're a little bit tougher than your average cave dive. It was great to get Bruce's perspective on human factors and what diving can learn from aviation. Thanks again. Thanks so much to XDeep for their support. Thank you to the patrons of Speaking Sidemount. If you'd like to become a patron and support this show, then please go to www.patreon.com/speakingsidemount and check out what's there. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next episode. You've been listening to Speaking Sidemount from www.sidemountpros.com. If you like the podcast, please subscribe and consider leaving us a 5-star review. If there's something you'd like us to cover on the show, then let us know via our Facebook page listed in the podcast notes. Thanks again, and we look forward to you joining us on our next episode of Speaking Sidemount.